Okay, so I think that we should be live. So, hi everyone.
Hi
So
there.
happy that you are here. You can say hi. We've got Vladimir, Jesse, Tobias, and also Eva. That is a hosting the meetup, and soon we're gonna have Siddhartha joining as well. So first, I really wanna thank you all to be here. Difficult times, but yeah, we gotta be positive. We gotta help each other, and of course, we gotta do meetups. And we will have GraphQL today. It's the very first GraphQL Madrid meetup. So super happy, super excited to be here. And today we are gonna have 3 talks. So first is gonna go Vladimir. So Vladimir is a software consultant working in Vladimir Labs. As far as I know, and now he can confirm to us, but he's looking for new gigs. So he is willing to do a lot of like software consultancy and workshops and a lot of stuff. So that's awesome. And he knows from like front end side to the backend side to the database. So that's great. And he's gonna be talking about using Yugabat DB with Hasura. So I'm really looking forward for this because I know that it's gonna be a live con demo. And let's see how that goes. So Vladimir, please introduce yourself.
Hi there. Really excited to be here. Thanks for having me at GraphQL Madrid. And yeah, today we'll be talking about like I'm broadcasting from outer space, kind of. So today we'll be talking about some future tech, right? We'll be talking about Yugabyte. We'll be talking about Hasura, about GraphQL, and yeah, Carlos mentioned that I'm software consultant. That's true. I'm like doing a bunch of stuff in web, mobile, VR, AR, IoT, AI. Probably adding blockchain will be on top of buzzwords, I guess. But yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about. And Carlos, do you have some intros, or we should move to slides right away?
Not yet. I'm gonna just give a quick intro to every single speaker, and after that, we can start with the slides. Okay, so I'm gonna
That's good.
tell you that. Awesome. So the second speaker of today, it is gonna be a Jesse. So Jesse Martin is a developer relation at GraphCMS, and he's doing a lot of stuff in the GraphQL community. He's been helping to organize the GraphQL Trap at API days in Europe, like I guess London and Paris, I guess. Yeah, and he's gonna be talking about the new GraphCMS, and I'm pretty like excited about this because they released it like a couple weeks ago, and yeah, I think it's gonna be like awesome to see that the new magic in GraphCMS. So please, Jesse, feel free to introduce yourself. Where are you calling from, and what you are gonna be talking about?
Yeah, thanks for the intro. So my name is Jesse, and I'm calling from southern Germany, originally from the US. I will be doing a talk today about the new GraphCMS, and also just a little bit about headless CMS in general, and showing some kind of GraphQL tips and tricks, how it helps to structure your queries, and some ways to fetch your content in useful techniques like aliases and using filters and things like that. And we'll do some speed schema building later on as well.
Awesome. That sounds great. And our third speaker is going to be Siddhartha, software engineer at Gatsby. He's going to be talking about how Gatsby uses GraphQL, and he's going to be joining later because he's just quite busy as we all are. So yeah, he's going to be the last speaker for today. So now I want to introduce our main sponsors because without them, we couldn't make this happen. Like do the meetups, the recording, confirm the speakers. It's such a lot of work. So first, we are going to have Tobias. So Tobias, the CTO of Brickle, and he is always, like willing to contribute with the GraphQL community, running events, and just like just contributed to all the community. So please, Tobias, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Tobias. I co-founder and CTO of Brickle. And I also want to say that I'm really excited today to join this event. I've been part of quite a number of GraphQL events, and this is my second online GraphQL event, and I'm excited that so many GraphQL superheroes are on the speaker list today. So I'm really looking forward to the talks. And Carlos, I know you're involved in the community a lot, so I know it's going to be a great event. And I just want to share shortly my screen and talk a bit about Brickle. Yeah. Yeah. Present. Okay, you should see my screen. So Brickle is a next generation.
We cannot, but you can go for it.
Okay. So Brickle is a next generation 3D configurator e-commerce platform. So especially for like sports brands, teamwear companies that are selling online. And we have a 3D configurator. So maybe Vladimir, we should talk after this. If you're into AR and VR, maybe that's something where we can collaborate. And yeah, we at Brickle, we use GraphQL a lot. And we have a quite an exciting stack that we use to build out the product. So we use all of the exciting GraphQL technologies like Gatsby. We use the Apollo client. We use Apollo server. We use Hasura. And everything runs on AWS. So we are really involved in the community and use those tools every day. So we are really happy to share our experience with the community. And we do that in different locations. So today we have GraphQL Madrid. But we also run different meetups in different places of the world. So we do have a meetup in Hong Kong. We have one in Bangkok that we run for a number of months already. And yeah, we are involved in the community and really like to share our experience and collaborate together to kind of help people get started. And also, yeah, just to share some stories and collaborate with the speakers. And yeah, really pleasure to be a part of this event today. And yeah, looking forward to these talks.
Oh, that's awesome. So just to recap, like Vladimir is calling from Israel, I guess. Jesse from Southern Germany. Tobias from Shenzhen, China. I'm calling from Midwest, Spain. And Eva, she's calling from Silicon Valley, California. And she's our second sponsor. So this Media is helping us in order to set up the event. And like I gotta like thanks a lot to this Media because it's our like second remote meetup, and it's like kind of difficult to like handle all the streaming, and it really helps to have someone with experience with all this stuff. So please, Eva, like introduce yourself. Where are you calling from? What did this meet up to? I know that you guys are hosting a lot of GraphQL meetups. 2 days ago you got E. Porcello and Alex Van giving a GraphQL.fun demo. It was like extremely awesome. So please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Eva Howe, and I am operations manager at This Dot. And we love GraphQL, obviously. We run a GraphQL meetup with Eve and Alex. We're going to do it monthly, and you can see upcoming speakers at GraphQL meetup here. Actually, I'm going to share my screen for just a moment, and I will show you the URL because it's always easier than actually. Did that work?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So it's just GraphQL-meetup.com. And we have our lovely current meetup up at the moment. So we're super excited to sponsor and help out. And then let me remove that from the screen. And then just a little bit about This Dot. This Dot Labs is a modern web consultancy focused on helping communities realize their digital transformation efforts for expert architectural guidance, training, or consulting in React, Angular, Vue, web components, GraphQL, of course, Node, Bazel, or Polymer. Contact us today at hi@thisdot.co. This Dot Media is focused on creating an inclusive and educational web for all. We keep up to date with advancements in the modern web through events, podcasts, and free content. Check out our latest content and start learning today. The media side is really focused on trying to make sure that we give plenty of content so that developers can further their education and always be learning more. So we're super happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So I was trying to set up my background, but it didn't work. So live coding thing. So now we're gonna go just with Vladimir. So Vladimir, please, as you are gonna be the first speaker, so you can just go on and start introducing yourself as well, I guess, for the people that they are like joining, and start your talk.
Sure. Cool. So can you see my screen, right?
Yes, you can go for it.
Cool. Yeah. So today we'll be talking about using Yuga by DB with Hasura to scale your GraphQL API globally, and I mean it. Like we'll have like distributed SQL all over the place, and in a good way, and GraphQL API auto-generated, and a bunch of cool live demos. A bit about myself. So I'm a software architect and consultant at Vladimir Novik Labs, which is basically just myself. I am Google developer expert, author, engineer, and as I mentioned, I work in web, mobile, VR, AR, IoT, AI. So another update, I'm recently also started a new initiative. I'm CTO and co-founder at a startup called Event Loop. And basically what we do, we create robust, performant, feature-rich online conferencing experience. So basically, if you want to create online conference and you don't want to, you want to piece all things together, you don't want to just have Zoom, I have like a social interaction and bunch of other stuff, we basically provide that, and it's completely open source. So if you want to sign up for our alpha and be like the first one to test it out, so you can go to Event Loop AI or follow us on Twitter, and we'll contact you. And yeah, if you like one of the event organizers or speakers, or you generally interested in this area, let us know. So jumping straight into the architecture part of GraphQL, I want to recap a little bit what is microservice architecture, which I believe lots of people heard about, of at least if not developed also. So the idea is we have an app, we have an API layer which connects to database, and we have a bunch of microservices. Now, recently, in recent years, there was a new trend going, and it's called three-factor app architecture. And this is like the actual, like you can go to a website and you can read more about that. Now, the idea is you have the GraphQL API, which is has subscriptions. That's the why it's real time. So it has subscriptions, and it's connected to a database. Now, on top of database, there is some sort of there is some sort of eventing system that basically triggers on any database change and runs serverless functions, such as in this example, like payment process, restaurant approvals, and so on. Now, Hasura engine works in this manner, in this architecture, right? Also, like AWS AppSync, as far as I know, works in the same, pretty much in the same domain, right? Having the same kind of architecture. So to talk about GraphQL, I don't think I need to explain about GraphQL because it's GraphQL Meetup. So I will just say that it's magic, right? We all know that. That's why we're using that. And I want to talk about Hasura. So first of all, what is Hasura? It's an open source and free engine. And it gives you auto-generated real-time GraphQL API on top of new existing Postgres database, which means a lot of things, right? It's open source. It can be deployed anywhere. It can run locally. Basically, everywhere where a Docker container can run, Hasura can run. It's compatible with all authentication solutions, at least with most of them. It can run on top of new or existing Postgres, which is really important if you want to migrate your Postgres database to a new stack, right? You can just run Hasura on top of existing database and get everything like all the GraphQL API auto-generated. It supports Postgres add-ons, PostGIS, TimescaleDB, and that's why today we will use Yugabyte with Hasura, which also has Postgres. It's Postgres compatible. That's why we can run Hasura on top of it. I mentioned that it auto-generates GraphQL API. GraphQL queries are compiled to perform on SQL statements. It also comes with a CLI. So we will see today Hasura console, but if you want to write code first or configuration first, you can do that. And it has Rails-like migration system. Whenever you do any change in the files or like any change in the console, it's saved as a local migration file that can be committed to Git, and you can run it in CI and will apply changes to your database. It can work with custom SQL statement, has configurable access controls, can be connected to your own GraphQL server, which is kind of cool. Like you want not only auto-generated GraphQL API, you also want an ability to kind of stitch other servers inside, write custom logic, and so on. So it gives you that. It has a venting system, the one that I mentioned in three-factor app architecture. So you can trigger serverless functions on any database changes. And to see it in action, basically, the first example will be to go to Heroku, but I want to run it more kind of developer environment. So I will run it in Docker Compose. I will basically download the Docker Compose file. This is just a screenshot from the docs, and the link is leading there. So what I will do, I think I downloaded that already. So I will run this Docker Compose file, and let's check what we have. We have the Hasura engine running, and we have Postgres database. So we have 2 Docker containers. Now, what it will give me, the ability to go to localhost. And in localhost, I will see basically, I don't need history here, but I will see the Hasura engine with nothing in documents here with like empty graphical tab, because I don't have anything. It's just a new Postgres database, right? And the cool part, it will be if I'll go and create users table, I can create it with helper function generating unique identifiers. I can set different types for different fields. And the data tab is sort of like a pgadmin. So basically, it will create tables in the database. Now, I will set the primary key here, and I will add this table. So what will be here? I can add also a post table. In post table, I will have an ID with unique identifier, and I will also add title with type of text. I will add content with type of text. I will also add user, and I can connect these tables. So I can say that the foreign key will be, and I know I'm doing this kind of fast, but I have the tutorials on more specific things. Here, what I will do, I will connect a user ID to an ID. So there will be a connection between these tables, and it will basically create post and user table. So here, nothing GraphQL related, right? I just have a post table, I just have a user table. But notice the magic. When I go to graphical tab, and I already have queries with posts, and I have queries with users, and I have even aggregate functions, right? And I have all the CRUD generated for me with all the like input types and where clauses, and I can do pretty awesome stuff here. So I would expect that if I will query posts, and if I will get title and content, I will also be able to get a user with a name, right? But it's not giving me this option. The reason for that is because I can run Hasura on top of existing databases. Not necessarily I want all my fields to be connected with the relationship, like exposing to GraphQL API. Now, because we have foreign keys, I can go to Relationships tab and just add this user. What it will do, it will create this relationship. And if I will run an insert post mutation, I will be able to insert both the post and the user in the same mutation. As you can see, it took me literally like 2 minutes to do that, right? And we have already CRUD API with posts and users. Pretty awesome, right? Now, what about scaling, right? And before that, also, let's look at the subscriptions. So we can obviously write subscriptions. We can query posts with title and content. And subscriptions will run whenever we will add another post. It will be presented here. So what about scaling? And before talking about scaling, usually when we talk about scaling, we talk about some numbers. So let's see the numbers. If we're running Hasura as a single instance with 2 CPU and 4 GB of RAM, we will see the amount of live queries, subscriptions, live queries. As the amount grows, the amount of CPU grows, right? So if, let's say, we have 4 CPU RAM, on 20,000 of active subscriptions, we have 90% CPU load, right? And we want more numbers, right? Let's say, let's think of 1 million. What if we will run 1 million concurrent subscriptions, right? In that case, we can create multiple Hasura instances. And this graph shows us that to get to 1 million, we will need to have like 50 and more now Hasura instances. And to look at the structure, it will look pretty much like this. We'll have a Postgres, we'll have a bunch of Hasuras, and we'll have our app. Now, what is this part, right? So if we get into cloud architecture and look more into how it will look like in real life, we'll have a Postgres running RDS, let's say 2 instances on a private subnet of master and slave, and we'll have different Hasura Fargate tasks. For ones who are not familiar with Fargate, basically it's running Docker container. So imagine multiple instances, like we said, 50 or something, right? And we have application load balancer in front of them. Everything is virtual private cloud and exposed to the outer world, right? To our application. Now, this will scale things. But what about database, right? So if we look here, we have only 1 Postgres, and here we have 2. Now, with 1 million concurrent subscriptions, we have 28% of database load, but still we want to have some kind of fault tolerance. What if database is down, right? We need to support that. So what is YugaByteDB, right? YugaByteDB is an open source. It's high performance distributed SQL database for powering global internet scale applications, right? That's what's said on the official website. But you can treat it sort of like CDN for a database. It's bringing data to the user, close to the user. And in addition to that, it has replication factors. It has lots of stuff. So it's built with a combination of high performance document store, per-child distributed consensus replication, multi-shard ACID transactions, and it's cloud native. It runs in one cloud, it runs in multiple cloud, and yeah, you can run like part of it on one cloud, part on the other cloud across like different availability zones and so on, and it just works. So you can run it in any public or private clouds. You can run in any Kubernetes environments, which is kind of cool. And it brings Postgres-compatible SQL API. It has low latency read performance, has globally distributed write scalability, and this now it's part of doing a bit of live example how we do it, how we install our YugaByte. So there is a quick start guide here linked to install it on your dev environment. Now, I already installed it on my Mac, so I won't go through that. I actually today I recorded an Egghead free lesson about how to do that. So once it will be approved, I will share it with on Twitter, so you can follow me and see whenever it will be live. But the main point is I downloaded the YugaByte with wget from here. I extracted it to YugaByte folder. I set up some configurations on my machine. And right now, I can go to YugaByte. First of all, let's just bring our Hasura Docker down, because we won't need it for now. And right now, I want to run YugaByte locally. So to do that, I want to create a cluster. Bin ybctl. And let me find this here. This is to create a cluster. What it will do, it will create database cluster with several nodes. And we can see it by running gigabyte.ctl action status, sorry. Status. So we will see we have one node, like node 3, node 2, node 1, with their processes IDs and bunch of shells. So you can go to MySQL shell, which is kind of extended SQL shell with bunch of additional things for distributed SQL. But apart from that, you can actually go to admin UI, and you can see Yugabyte in the browser. You can see that it has replication factor of 3. It has specific number, like 3 nodes, 3 servers running, no user tables for now. It's load balanced and so on. And you can even go inside specific nodes, and you can go and see the logs of every node and what's going on every server, which is really cool. So now what I want to do is I have my Yugabyte running, right? I can even go in Yugabyte shell and run some SQL, but instead of doing that, I want to run Hasura on top of it. And for that, let me clear my screen. So yeah, so what I will do, I will get back to the slides first. And you have all the explanation that I just did here on the slides with the GIF. So to run Hasura on top of Yugabyte, we will run this command. So in the slides, you can just simply copy that. Let me walk you through. You have the database URL. It's just simple Postgres URL, but it has different port. It's 5433. And we enable the console because just now for simplicity. And let's look at Hasura. Now it's running. And if we go to the console, it will take some time to load. Let's see. Live coding happens. Okay. So now it's loaded. And what I will see in the console, I will see, again, empty database because we have, this is a new Yugabyte instance, right? But now I will do the same thing I just did. So I will create a users table with ID. I will generate the random UID. We'll set up a name, text. Primary key will be an ID. We'll add this table. Add post table. Post table will have an ID. Again, will be auto-generated. I will have title of type text. We're pretty much doing the same I just did on local Postgres, but this time on the cluster. So I have title and content. Primary key will be an ID. I will set up a foreign key, referencing users table. And I forgot the user ID field here. It's also unique identifier. Now, if I go to users table, I say that user ID will be mapped to ID. Save that. Add this table. And we also need to set up relationships, right? So posts will have a user. Now, if we go to GraphQL, we see all of this stuff again, and we can create a new post, and it's created, right? Now, if we query our posts with where, well, it's a wrong where clause, but let's query Just simple post like that. So we have the first post. Now let's simulate what happens. And yeah, let's just get through this. So running on top, let's simulate downtime, right? How do we simulate downtime? Let's look at our cluster right now. Our cluster has 3 nodes, everyone running. What I want to do now is to stop one of the nodes. CTL stop node 2. It will stop node on TS server. So if I go to Yugabyte console here, this was the one that has stopped. So let's go to the admin UI, and we see in our tablet servers, we'll see somewhere that they are stopped. I think this one has to be updated. Still showing that it's alive, but if you go through the status command, you will see that this is actually stopped. Now, what I expect in like normal case will happen to Hasura, right? My query won't work, but this time my query keeps working, right? So this is pretty cool. I have one database, one like database in the cluster is down and everything is working, right? Now, what will happen if I will run a subscription? Well, actually, yeah, with subscription, let's run subscription here and see. So if I will run subscription and post, it's still running, everything is good. What will happen if I will stop another node? Let's stop node number 3. Now, my subscription seems to run for some time, but probably I won't see anything coming from here. And if I will try to query, I will get an error because we have 2 nodes out of 3. Now, there is a concept called replication factor. Now, Yugabyte is set up with replication factor of 3, meaning it can tolerate 1 failure. If it's 2 failures, it won't tolerate that. So right now, it won't work. But see how fast it will be up once I start the node. I need to start the node. And will produce an error because there is 1 node that is stopped. So it will show me that there is a problem with TS server. But you see it's already here, like the data has returned. I haven't, like if I run it, it's already there. So it's pretty cool, right? So now, to simulate downtime, we did the stop node, we stopped another one, and a 2 failed node with a replication factor 3. Basically, that's what will return from subscription. I just didn't want to run that because it takes time for response to get. Because of it takes time for subscriptions to fail, and this is cool because when you know this stopped and then it's back, the subscription will just keep running. Now this is the error that will be for insert, for instance. You'll see the timeout. It cannot get to the you will get Postgres query error and so on. So with 1 failure is fine, with 2 is not because of replication factor. And failures, it's not only the stopped server. It can be the disk, it can be the network, it can be the availability zone, it can be even the cloud region, data center, and the entire cloud. You can run Yugabyte in multi-cloud environment. And if 1 cloud is down, then and you have 3, and the replication factor is 3, then your application will simply run. So the takeaways from these presentation is Hasura auto-generates GraphQL API for you, and it's open source. pretty nice. Yugabyte takes care of high availability of your database. So you kind of solve the problem with Hasura, like scaling it with multiple Hasura instances. Well, Yugabyte will bring the data close to the user. It will deal with all the like replication factor, fault tolerance, and so on. And so, as I mentioned, brings data close to user for multi-region, multi-cloud deployments. They are open source, and you can start using it today. And in fact, things that I showed you today, you can also read about that in this blog post that I released a couple of days ago. Yeah, and thanks. If you have questions, you can ask them here in chat. If you need some consulting or like remote workshops and mentoring, you can go to my website. It will be updated next week probably, with a bunch of new workshops that I will be doing next week and in the upcoming months. Also, if you're interested in the business we're starting with the event loop, let's talk about that. If you're interested in online conferences, if you're interested in organizing, attending, speaking, and just getting all the experience, let me know. And yeah, follow me on Twitter. And my DMs are open, so you can always ask a question.
Awesome, Vladimir. That was a really good talk, man. Yeah.
Thanks.
So we have like some questions here. So the first question is Arnold from Brazil. He's asking about if he can use Yugabyte DB with Amazon, Azure, or GCP. And he means in his region in Brazil in this case.
Yeah, you can use definitely with any cloud that you want. You can run it like whatever Kubernetes environment can run. There is a recent blog post on Yugabyte blog about how you can run it in Google Cloud Platform. I'm working on a blog post how to run this in AWS, and definitely you can do that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Probably
I see
later.
there. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Like after, like probably you can just sing with him.
Yeah. I also see the questions are in live comments here, right? The ones that I see also.
Yeah. So Francisco from Madrid, from Labrada, he's asking about the structure Postgres, Yugabyte, and Hasura. And I know that you are expert on this area, so you can answer his question.
Yeah. So you can manage all the infrastructure because with Hasura, for instance, it has the migrations. So you basically have Hasura migrations running. So you can set up multiple environments and run migrations in CI and so on. For Yugabyte, you also can manage that. It's like described pretty well in docs. And I'll be probably releasing some videos on how to do that and some live streams on how to do that. Because I'm honestly, when I found out about Yugabyte, I was like, oh, amazing. It solves the problem of scaling my database. And yeah, pretty cool. So I will be definitely doing that and showing how to do that. And I see another question about the like event loop and speaking of event loop. So if you go to eventloop.ai, you have the sign up for early alpha. So you can go there and like sign up with your email address and name, and whenever we have alpha available, you can we will reach out.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So I think like we are like on time right now. So thanks so much, Rami, for joining us. I was like really hoping to meet you sooner.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's gonna happen like face to face this year.
Yeah.
But like it's a pleasure to have you here, and yeah, I really like give you thanks for this. And please, how the people can reach out to you, because if I was hiring, I was definitely hiring you just yesterday. So please let people know how they can reach you out.
Well, I'm not looking for, because like I'm CTO and co-founder of like a new thing that we're doing, but I'm not looking for, like you mentioned that I'm looking for gigs. It's kind of outdated. I'm not looking for gigs because I'm like focused on my startup. But even though like I have hour here, hour there, like for consulting and, like architectural wise and so on. And I also do remote workshops, also like on demand. So if you have something in mind, you want to brush up on skills, you want to get more in depth, and you have a team, you can totally reach out. We can find like some time to do that, right? And basically, you can reach out through my website. You can probably the easiest way will be just to DM me on Twitter. Speaking of the fact, we were supposed to meet, I think, at React Summit, right? We were supposed to meet there. So I started another thing, which is, like now I have time to start a bunch of initiatives, right? So it's called remotetechtalks.com. If you go to this website, it's just another like sign up form right now. But the idea is I want to stream conversation with people about stuff, just general like tech related stuff. On Zoom, I will stream on Twitch, obviously not on Zoom. We'll stream on Twitch on a kind of bi-weekly basis. So if you're interested to just get a notification about that, you can sign up on the website. If you're interested in to chat with me about some things that will be beneficial for other people in the community, let's do that. You can just DM me on Twitter. We'll figure out times and set this up.
Awesome. That sounds great. So thanks so much, Vladimir, for joining us. Like, if you have something to tell to wrap it up, that'd be great.
There was another question here, like a short one, right? If I can just relate to that.
Sure,
so for the website, I haven't added here to my slide the website for the event loop. This is eventloop.ai. This is the website for our startup. And obviously, we will share this link with Yuga by Hasura Magic. You will share it, right?
Video and everything. Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Awesome, Vladimir. So it was a pleasure to have you over, and have a good day. Stay safe, stay strong, and let's see each other soon, I guess.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
So now our next speaker, I'm gonna try to change again my background. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to do it, but it's gonna be Jesse, and he's gonna be talking about GraphCMS. So we can just try to have him on, and I think he's already on. So we might just. Yeah, you definitely are. So he's going to be talking about the new GraphCMS, and now I should be also on with a nice background. So Jesse, he's a developer relation from GraphCMS, and they have released the new version of GraphCMS a couple of weeks ago. But let Jesse introduce himself, where you are calling from, and what you are up to today.
Thanks. So I'm Jesse. I'm calling from Germany. I think we did a quick intro earlier, but for those that maybe joined late, we did do a soft launch of our brand new product, and we're pretty excited about it. And so I wanted to give you a chance to have a look at how GraphCMS works. I'm very partial to it, but I would say that we are one of the fastest ways to get up and running with GraphQL out there. And it's got a free developer account that I'll be demonstrating as well later on. But it's a great tool, and we just really hope that you like it as much as we do. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, or at least share a window to my screen. So I believe you should be able to see it now. Yeah, so this is our new homepage. You can find out all about the new application. If you browse around, we have a lot of work that's gone into this to add a lot of information that helps you learn more about it. If you come to the documentation, it's being built daily by me and my other advocates on our team, which we're doing the best we can. If you see anything missing or have any questions, definitely ping us in Slack or in one of our other community channels. But this is, if you're not familiar with our old platform, we were one of the first GraphQL CMS out there, and just made it a really easy way to do drag and drop schema building and getting super powerful applications built up quick. So without beating around the bush too much here, we have our new application. I'm going to go ahead and pop out here to the dashboard. You can see a whole bunch of projects in play. And I'm going to demonstrate the schema that I've been building, and I'm making a documentation on this to talk about some content modeling concepts for headless CMS in general. And what we have here is the dashboard, like you've probably seen 100 times for other applications. On the left, we have a schema builder. We have the content editing interface, and then we have an area to manage your assets, and then we have a built-in API playground. So if we go to the schema editor, we can do a quick survey and see kind of what we have to work with here to inspect what our schema looks like. And these would be the types that you have in your system. So what we have here is the top level concept is it's a coffee shop, right? It's a cafe, international cafe company that would have selling tea and coffee and pretzels or whatever else a typical cafe would sell. And so what we have at the very top level are individual stores. These stores are comprised of fields for the name, relationship to a brand, an actual map type, and then we have a relationship to a menu. If you break those down, I'm not going to go through each of these, but if you break it down to a menu, we have then, again, a name. We have the ability for a menu that's able to be comprised of multiple types. So we have union types, which is something we're super excited about, and I'll be demonstrating for you a little bit later. This includes drink and food, and then we have the individual store that's related to it. And so we have things like coffee. Coffee is a generalization model for something like, drinks are a generalization model for something like coffees and teas. So we have sort of an inheritance concept built into this model, and a lot of really powerful features that we'll look at once we step over here into the content. So inside of the content overview, and I'm rushing through this a little bit quickly because I don't want to show you as much the actual interface. That's something for you to create a free account for and play around with. What I really want to show off to you is the power of the GraphQL behind it. So what we have is underneath the top level store here, I've created a concept for the Spiced Islands coffee or cafe chain. We have two locations here. I'm going to open up the Berlin location. And so we have Spiced Islands Berlin. We have connected it to the Spiced Islands Cafe brand, which we could also inspect by looking at here. And simple brand type in this case. We have the map for where it's located, and then we have a menu created. If we hop over to that menu, we can see that the menu is comprised of menu items. And those menu items are these top level components such as the drinks or the food items. So it can be a combination of multiple types. And of those types, we've connected those to coffees or teas and other elements. So if I go to, let's say, making a new drink here, and I'm going to create a special version of a chai tea here. I'm going to go ahead and create. Actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. We're going to go ahead and create we're going to open up the new store for Spiced Islands Madrid. So we're going to go to store, make a new store here. We're going to call this Spiced Islands Madrid. And we're going to go ahead and connect this to our existing brand. We're going to go ahead and hop down here, and I have no geographical marker in my mind of what to type in. So I'm just going to see what we get for typing in Madrid directly. So whatever is the default position for Google Maps of Madrid, that's what we're getting today. Looks like it's probably a train station. Good, and we're going to go ahead and actually create a new menu. I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick. I'm not going to publish it just yet, but I'm going to go ahead and save it. And we're going to go ahead and make a new menu. And this is going to be the Madrid, the Spiced Islands menu for the Spanish menu. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and add here is a couple of menu items. And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and create a new, let's go ahead and create a new document. We're just going to add 2 drink items and 2 food items here. And hopefully I'm not going to cause any offense with with my very poor high school Spanish. I'm not even going to attempt translations on this meetup tonight. So what we have here is, or maybe we'll ask the crowd, we'll do some audience participation for some translations. We're going to go ahead and grab the ES Americano, which I have found after moving to Europe that what we call an Americano in the US is just whatever the rest of the world calls a coffee. That's how things work. This is the ES Americano. It is going to be a kind of coffee, and that coffee is going to be the Americano-based coffee type. The reason why I structured the content this way, here's some headless theory for you. The reason why I structured it this way is that if I have an Americano as a concept for a drink that I'm offering from my cafe chain, it's something that I would be, in theory, wanting to offer in multiple locales. So I would be wanting to sell that in Australia or in Berlin or in Madrid. And if I don't have any kind of a top level wrapper around that, I have a problem with attaching, where does my SKU go? Where does the individual identifier for that geo's business tracking unit? So I need to somehow be able to say, I need to be able to track this individual unit, this Americano that is unique to Spain, and track product constraints and sourcing and ERP and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and make a size here. This is available as a large, as a small, as a regular. And once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and say save and publish my drink here. And I'm only have an English translation right now, so I don't have to worry about the other ones. I could add the translation. I'll add a translation here in a minute. What we're going to do is go ahead and we'll do some translations on the food items, because that's where we'll probably have the most relevant example of it. I'm going to go ahead and add another drink. We're going to go ahead and add the ES Espresso. That's fun to write. And we're going to go ahead and say this is only available as a small. And this is also going to be an extension of my base type, another coffee here. And this is going to be of my espresso type. So save and publish that. Let's go ahead and add a food item now to this list. And we're going to go ahead and I need some audience participation here. So I'm switching to the live comments. What's a classic cafe food item, classic food item in Spain? So I'm looking at the chat here. So first person in with a family friendly entry. I need a cafe food item. Tapas. Okay. So we have tapas. And it looks like I'm going to probably need a base. I'm going to need to have a new base for that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say, create and add a new document. This case, it's, I don't have a type for that. So let's see here, salad, soup, sandwich. It's kind of like all of the above, right? I'm going to go ahead and say this is, we're going to call it a baked good for now, because it's like, it's like the top level of everything. So
yeah, that should be good.
What's that?
That should be good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and say save and publish the top level item. Save and publish that. This is going to be my ES tapas. I have misspelled tapas. Good. All right. And then we'll say, I think that's probably good. Made fresh, of course. And we will say, yes, go ahead and save and publish this. Good. And so now we have on our menu, we have the ES Americano, the ES Espresso, the ES Tapas. We'll go ahead and hit save. Actually, I'm going to save and publish this menu. So now what we have is a new store location that is the Spice Islands Madrid. It's the menu location. We have the brand. We have the menu. I'm going to go ahead and save on this again. And we're going to look back and notice that it's not published yet. So we're going to go ahead and fix that real quick. I can either publish it from inside of the content entry, or I can just go ahead and publish it here as well. So now that we have a published item, I'm going to look at some actual querying of data here for our the GraphQL part of the GraphQL meetup here. And then we're going to do a little bit of audience participation in a few minutes about generating a business idea that we're going to show how fast it is to model something with GraphQL inside of GraphCMS. So be getting your creative juices started. We're going to have some fun here. So inside the API playground, we're going to just go ahead and grab top level here. This is a really nice playground. It's based on GraphQL, which you're probably all familiar with. It supports query history, which is nice. You can see that I have run a few queries recently. We have the new Explorer functionality where you can, I'm on the wrong API. Oh, so we have the ability to explore what the API offers. And the reason why this looks a little bit different is that right now I'm viewing the management API. So we have two primary GraphQL APIs available for every project. You have the management API, which does everything for your project, structuring the project, so you could programmatically create a GraphCMS project for a customer. We also have then the project API, which then actually is all of the content that you would expect. So these are all the generated types that you could drill down on if you wanted to explore that way and show basic information. So something that you're probably familiar with seeing if you've experienced the latest updates to the graphical interface, but it's something that we've added now as well, which is really nice. I'm just going to do this from scratch here. And so we'll say stores. We're going to go ahead and grab the location and just pick up the latitude and longitude off of that. I'm going to grab the name. So first query, we can just kind of inspect it. We get what we would expect, right? We get the islands Berlin, we get the islands Munich. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm looking for the, I'm just going to filter this down here with, we have a whole bunch of filters we support, but I'm going to go ahead and in this case, do a simple search here where I'm limiting it down to just the Berlin store again. So I'm going to do, in this case, a simple search for Berlin. In this case, I've been able to limit it down to the Berlin office. We offer a whole bunch of filters. You have Boolean types. You have all kinds of powerful features that we can maybe look at in a minute. So we have the item here. We're going to go ahead and grab the menu. And because this is a union type, we have to query that with inline fragments. So I'm going to say the menu, on the menu items, we're going to say on the drink type, we're just going to go ahead and grab the name. And on drinks, we have special values, right? So drinks, we're going to say that this has the sizes that are available for that drink. And I added in another feature for that as well, I believe, or maybe that just supports sizes. That one's just sizes. So we're going to go ahead and say that just give me the sizes there. I'm going to go ahead and drill down again onto the baked, onto the food items. Oops, on food. And we're going to get the name on that. And we're going to grab the fresh, made fresh. So we're going to go ahead and inspect that, and we get the data we would expect. We get the ability to view our entire query. It's a really powerful, flexible way to work with content modeling. I mean, GraphQL we know and love because it's so descriptive for the data we would expect. And what's really powerful is that we can now say from a content generation perspective, from a CMS perspective, content management, we're able to just generate all of this descriptive language around our data by using a simple drag and drop interface. So really a powerful syntax if you're used to working with some of the other CMSs out there. So we have some basic structure there. We can filter things down pretty aggressively. Let's say if we wanted to look at all of the drinks that we have available, let's see what we can drum up here for unique values. We're going to say on the drinks, I'm doing this totally live here. So we'll say the drinks, we'll say the only drinks that have sizes that only come in small small sizes. What do we have here? We get the Americanos, we get the frappe and the espresso. So it's a really powerful way to query your data, to filter your data. We also support mutations, so you can write data back into the system in a really powerful and flexible way. Let's say we wanted to make this as a mutation. I'm trying to think of what I want to create here. I think I will make a sandwich because I like sandwiches. We're going to go ahead and say mutation, and we're going to go ahead and say create sandwich. I'm going to pass in a data operator here. I'm going to return just the ID on that. So on the data object here, we're going to need to give it a name, and we're going to need to give it a call this a tapas sub, because it can be like whatever you want it to be. Pop that in some strings there, and let's see what else we got. We're going to grab the sauces that are available for that. I'm going to go ahead and connect that to, or we'll create a new sauce in this case. And the sauce needs to be what am I going to call that sauce? I need another audience participation here. What's a good sauce that you would expect to find in Madrid? So I'm looking at the chat here, giving us some moments. If somebody says tapas sauce, I'm going to be really upset. Oh, there's a really good sandwich recommendation. Bocadillo calamares. Okay, I like that. We're going to change out the sandwich here. What's the sauce I would expect there? Carlos, help me out.
Yeah, I can help you out. So someone had mentioned bravas, which also is kind of a sauce. So you can just put that.
Bravas?
Yeah, BRABAS. Yeah, bravas.
Or with a V, bravas.
Yeah.
All right,
so
good.
You can see tapas and then bravas. So that one.
So you'll notice here that I have this nested create statement. So I'm going to go ahead and run this here, and I'm missing the required field here. So I'm going to go ahead and say on my sandwich, I have the name here, and we're going to say the available toasted. It's probably true.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and run that. We have the ID. Let's go ahead and inspect in our content. And so under sandwiches, we now have I didn't pass in the which stage to put it in, so it's draft by default. So we have the bocadillo de calamares. We'll go ahead and publish that. And we'll see that I also don't have my sauces published yet. And it's saying, hey, you have a reference that's not published as well. We'll go ahead and capture that now as well. Go ahead and hit publish. And we're going to go ahead and use this as an opportunity to say, actually, this sandwich, that name, that's not an English name. That's a Spanish name. We're going to go ahead and pop that out. Pop in the translation. I don't know. So calamari, right? But I don't know what bocadillo is actually. Oh, Carlos, one more time.
Yeah, I think it's pretty difficult. I'm gonna just double check here in Google Translate.
Yeah, Google Translate to the day.
And that's gonna be a squid. Yeah, squid. What? A squid sandwich. That's like the Google translation.
Squid sandwich. I like it.
Which kind of makes sense. Yeah.
We're gonna run a squid sandwich, which
yeah. That's fine.
A nice toasted squid sandwich. All right, go ahead and hit save and publish. And there we go. So now we have the translation there for the squid sandwich, bocadillo calamares. If we run back there and just look at what it looks like to query content that is translated, we're just going to grab all of our sandwiches here. And in most cases, I do not have translation. So what I'm going to run here first is just the name. And what I get here is the only item that I have available with that translation. If I were to pass in as a fallback parameter here, like this, now I get then my alternative. So that's my very West Coast American sandwich originality there, fried egg sandwich. But we have then the fallback mechanism says, if I don't have the Spanish translation available, then just give me what you have for a fallback locale. So a really powerful mechanism as well for working for locales. Really good. Somebody says they're hungry. I hear you. So that is a whirlwind tour of GraphCMS. I'm not quite sure how are we doing on time, Carlos, because I got to make sure that I respect the other speakers here. How much time do we got?
You get like a 10 if you can finish
10
in 10
minutes. So we're going to do some speed schema generation in 10 minutes. So I need a business idea. Do we have anybody who's already chipped in anything?
Not yet, but I'm pretty sure that they are gonna just.
So we're gonna give it.
So what? Yeah. What do you mean with a business idea? Just for the people to know.
Anything. So could be a coffee shop, could be a brewery, could be HR management platform. If you want to be boring. Oh man, Frederick, you mentioned aioli sauce. That would have been a nice one. Oh well.
Yeah.
All right, so we have one more. We give one more minute here, then I'll have to just generate something off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
All right.
Record store.
What's that?
A record store.
Record store.
Yep.
I'm not sure. What's a record store? A record store. Record store.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, so we'll hit the history of branding here. So we're going to call this Puget Sound Records, which probably exists. Puget Sound is the tiny inlet of water around where I used to live. Puget Sound Records, and we'll say good. So that's fine. We're going to go ahead and put it in Germany anyways, even though it's closer to this one over here. But for the rate of our mutation and reading and all that kind of stuff tonight, we're going to do it here. So a record store, we need to have things like, and I'm going to use the free account here just to demonstrate that we have one. So free account for developers. Let's see here. So record stores obviously need to have records, which they sell. All right. So we're going to go ahead and say, pop this off at the initial is a record. And so the question is this going to be a record like traditional, like vinyl, or is this going to be like somebody that maybe has got like music attached to digital downloads? Do we offer digital downloads? Audience?
I think we can go with digital downloads.
Digital
I guess.
Downloads?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go with the track. And obviously it would be nothing without having an actual artist behind it. And we're going to need to have a publisher. We're going to need to have a production house because we are nothing without our money. All right. So that's a fairly simple, straightforward model to start with. Let's go ahead and start connecting this out a little bit. Somebody popped in final, but too late. All right. We're going to go ahead and say that on our record, we're going to have a title. I have a keyboard. It's kind of dying on me a little bit, so I have to be careful how I write things here. We're going to say that the title is going to be displayed as a title field. We're going to go ahead and say this needs to be a required field, and we're just going to leave it at that for the moment. And what we need there, after we have the on the record, we're going to go ahead and add in a relationship to our artist. So we're going to go ahead and make this as a relationship to artists. We're going to check a couple of things here. So the record could have multiple artists. So we're going to allow multiple values. We're going to go ahead and configure the reverse side. And we're going to say that an artist could also be a part of multiple records because it's very common to have that exist. So in this case, we've defined a many-to-many relationship. I challenge you to create a many-to-many relationship that quickly on any other platform. And we're going to go ahead and say that we need to have a producer for that record. And that producer, I guess you actually can have, I don't really know the record industry that well. I'm guessing you can have multiple producers. I don't know if it's like a main producer and a sub producer. If that was the case, you could make the same reference twice and call it different things, naming the edge, if you will. So you would have the main producer as a reference and the sub producer as a reference. But we'll go ahead and say we'll allow multiple values, in this case, to the producer. Configure the reverse field. And we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to allow multiple values the reverse way as well, because if a producer only has one record, either they got really lucky or they are out of business today. So we will go ahead and hit create. And let's see here. So we have the artist, we have the producer. Now we need the tracks. Now here's going to be a little bit of a different situation. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to call this the track. And we're going to go ahead and say we're going to allow multiple values here. I am going to make a restriction, though, on the reverse side and say that this can't actually be, that a track can't be a part of multiple records. If it's on another record, we're going to call that essentially a new track. And so that's, I think, a common way to track that. No pun intended. All right, so if we hop over to artist, let's give it a couple of quick values. We're going to give it a name. We'll do first, last on that. And we're going to go ahead and say that the producer will also have a name. They also will need to have a website. I'm going to go ahead and use this as an opportunity to pass in a couple of other fields here. So on the record, we're going to go ahead and add an explicit flag. Wrong field there. A Boolean operator for explicit values. And we're going to go ahead and say that, no, we'll go ahead and add in a float here for price. The diffuser on my light just fell off, so that probably just got a lot brighter for you all. All right, make field required. No. Good. So we have a quick model there. And the last item then, I think we've connected everything together. Let's go ahead and look at our content now. A track, we need to have an actual name. Make this field required. We're going to go ahead and drop in a asset. Just see if I can actually kill that light there real quick. That's a little better. And we're going to add in the asset on there for the actual audio file. Okay, make that required as well. So let's take a look at our model. Let's see here. So we have a track. We have a record. We'll call this the Madrid Streets. And we need an artist. Create a new one here. And we'll call this that's dangerous. We're gonna just go with something real random here because I don't want to even attempt writing Spanish live. And we're gonna go ahead and say producer. Give me a name for producer, Carlos.
Wow, that's a good question though.
Tell me a fake one. Something.
Siddhartha.
Z?
Siddhartha Sid. When do you mean a producer is a brand or is a person? Or
somebody who makes them, somebody who basically pays for the CD.
Yeah, so Siddhartha, I guess. The next speaker, Siddhartha. Sid is with S, but yeah, you get. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, good. We'll go ahead and make this then. The website is www.siddhartha, because everything is clever in music land. So we'll go ahead and save and publish that. That might be a real website. Don't go to there. I have not verified it. We'll go ahead and do a quick track. In this case, we'll just call this Tapas Original. Stick with a theme. I'm not going to attach an audio file here because I think I'm getting a little bit tight on time for now. But it was just a classic upload. Oh, I actually made it required. So, yeah. That wasn't smart of me. Let's see what we got here. We're going to do a quick kind MP3. What do we get? Top result. I don't think we can actually get a file here. I'm not going to sponsor plagiarism or pirating here on a live channel. So we're going to avoid attaching a track for now, and we'll just call that my bad. And we're going to go ahead and say not explicit. The price is $9.99. And we're going to go ahead and save and publish that. If we go then to our API Explorer, we can already look at that and say, okay, we have the records. And we're going to look at the artist, publisher, producer, actually. Tracks is going to be empty, but there we are. And whether or not it's explicit, actually, I'll pull that one off. I'm going to go explicit. So we have basically within 10 minutes, we were able to model out a rough, very rough idea for a record shop, and then we're able to make multiple models. So we created 4 models, interconnected them, technically attached 5 of them together. So we had then created the graph. GraphQL is up and running. I mean, that's really fast for getting started with GraphQL, for reasoning about schema generation. For somebody who's even new to GraphQL, it's a great way to learn it and be able to benefit from the powers of GraphQL right away. So that was a whirlwind tour. We have the free developer accounts. Hop in there, build cool stuff, test it out. With that, then I'll just go ahead and say, what are any questions?
For now, we don't have any in the live chat, or I cannot see them. But I do have a question for you, Jesse. Oh, probably we have one question, so you might answer that. Yeah, some feedback, so you can just go through it, probably.
Where's the question?
I mean, like Francisco, he is saying like, I see the potential, but it looks like it takes some time to get used to all features and the API options. So I guess like he is asking for a kind of like a quick tutorial about like learn GraphCMS. Probably all the questions are in YouTube, but yeah, that's the question. So probably how I can say here, like how the people can get introduced to GraphCMS in the quickest way. Is there any like tutorial, any documentation that they might check it out?
Sure. So definitely we'll be releasing more and more video tutorials on how to do things. The quickest way, I mean, it is a free account. Just open it up and click on some stuff, because you can totally play with it, test it out. Once you see how the mechanisms work for one field, they carry over to other fields and it makes sense. The documentation is another great place to go and look. We have all of the fields documented. You can see how they work, what do they expect, the shapes of the responses. Everything from the API reference is documented underneath the reference. On the user interface side, on the guides, if you go to concepts, you can look at things like content and understand how we do things with content. So we break down everything as cleanly as possible. You can always push this little bubble down here and ask a question. We do actually respond to that like quickly as well, usually. So if you have any questions, feel free to ping us there. But the documentation, which again is just typical graphcms.com/docs, is a really great place to start as well. But we'll be producing a lot of content. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. One of my coworkers, Jamie Barton, he's a mad dog when it comes to actually producing content. So he'll be spitting out a lot of stuff as well. So definitely follow those people.
Yeah, I think like Jamie also is around. So might you guys drop the link in the YouTube channel so the people they can just go to the docs and the tutorials?
The docs? I should drop that right here.
Yeah,
I actually can drop a link here. I think. I
mean, like, yeah, in the YouTube channel. So later I can just like, so there you can just like drop it, and the people there are gonna be able to just check it out. Awesome. So that was a really good live demo entrepreneurship talk. So I really enjoyed it, and I think that the people they did as well. So anything that you want to add to wrap it up, Jesse? How the people they can reach you out, what they're up, what you are up to, what this GraphCMS doing in the upcoming quarters or years. That'd be awesome to hear.
Yeah, so I will just add the caveat, we are in soft launch phase, so you'll come across a couple of bugs. One thing, like, for example, I could have gone back in and edited the track so that the file itself wasn't required. The mutations for that type of field is not yet there. So like in the editor, it'll just say, hey, this isn't possible. But that'll be fixed in like 4 days or something. So I mean, it's we're rolling out. The official release still planned is for the 21st. And so yeah, everything is still getting nailed down daily. We have a lot of cool features. Versioning is going to be built into it. Custom stages is built into it. We have a lot of really, really cool features. We recently replatformed onto some, tried and true technology to help us pick up some speed again in how fast we release features. We used to be based on another provider in the industry. Don't want to dog on anybody. Slowing us down a little bit. So we went ahead and replatformed. So now we own the stack and are really excited about what the future looks like for GraphCMS.
Awesome. That sounds great. I'm super excited to check it out personally. Just go through all the new product and just try out. So yeah, I might do that soon, I guess.
Do it.
Awesome. Okay, Jesse, it was a pleasure to see you again. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Super important in these crazy times to keep running, and always it's difficult to put some time aside to share knowledge with the community. So thanks so much, and have a good day, and hopefully we will see each other soon.
Hopefully.
Okay, cool. So that was a really good talk. So now we have Siddhartha, that he was a bit busy before, and now he should be joining me, and I'm going to introduce him, I guess. So there he is. And I'm going to try to change my background as well. Let me check if I can do that quickly. This is my green stuff. And then we should have somewhere here, we are going to have Sid. Where is Sid? Here it is. And probably he has to set up his audio. So now we can just wait a bit.
Hey.
And there it is. So Siddhartha should be up, and I should be up. Yeah, sound and clear. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. How's everybody doing? I was busy producing a record.
In Siddhartha with us, right?
Yes, you know who is the name of the new album. Go buy it at all your record stores. But yeah, it's good to see you. That was a great talk from Jesse, and I hope everyone's doing well. I know that we are currently living in strange times. It's getting really difficult and it's scary. And I hope everybody's safe and everybody's taking care of themselves. Let
me introduce yourself first. Let me introduce you first. And today, for last of GraphQL Madrid first meetup, we're gonna have Siddhartha. He's a software engineer at Gatsby, and he's gonna be talking about how Gatsby uses GraphQL. So I got like give a shout out to the Gatsby, because they are improving a lot the GraphQL community. They are doing really cool stuff. I know that Siddhartha, he's also working in hooks for Gatsby, so probably you can give a quick details about that stuff. And yeah, please feel free to introduce yourself. Where are you calling from? And yeah, looking forward to see how Gatsby is GraphQL.
Sure. Thank you for the intro. So my name is Sid. Most people just call me Sid. I live in India, in Bombay, and I currently work on the Gatsby core team. So we all, help maintain Gatsby and build new features on a day-to-day basis. Today we will be talking about how Gatsby uses GraphQL. So let me share my screen very quickly. Right, I'm just going to share my entire screen because why not? Is this visible?
Yeah, you up.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's talk about how Gatsby uses GraphQL. If you've never used Gatsby before and you're wondering what it is, then let me tell you that it's a web compiler. Amongst other things, Gatsby lets you build web apps in React, and lets you use GraphQL to consume data from many different sources, and eventually gives you a bunch of static assets that you can just deploy over to a CDN, right? And the cool thing about Gatsby is that it lets you get data from multiple different sources. So instead of looking at screenshots of how that works, let's actually try it out. So I'm going to create a new Gatsby site. I'm going to call it GraphQL Madrid. Okay. And we're going to use a starter called Gatsby Starter Blog, which is going to set up a site for us very quickly. And let's give NPM a few seconds. Okay, apparently longer than a few seconds. Let's give it another few seconds. And that is still running, I think. Interesting. This should not take so long. So while that spins up and while we get dependencies and stuff cloned, let's talk about let's look at the other slides. So like I said before, Gatsby lets you build apps with React and GraphQL. So in most circles, I like calling Gatsby React with superpowers. You get React, you can do the same things that you can typically do with Create React App. But the superpowers that you have is that you have access to data from multiple sources all over GraphQL. So let's say you have a Markdown file with this content in it. Once our Gatsby site spins up, this is one of the default sort of Markdown content that we have in one of the files. And usually, writing stuff in Markdown or writing stuff in, say, GraphCMS that we just saw is nice, but having to consume different data sources is typically not very easy. You're going to be calling different APIs, you're going to be having Webpack loaders to sort of consume this Markdown. So what Gatsby does is that it makes all of your data available over GraphQL. And it does that without you having to do any work there. You can spin up a Gatsby site, have a Markdown file, right? And you will get all the data that you have in that Markdown file over GraphQL. And if this is almost done. It's moving forward. So once this is done, we'll see what that typically looks like. But you know what the interesting thing about this is? It's that you aren't restricted to just Markdown. You can pull data from pretty much anywhere. That could be a Markdown file, that could be JSON files, CSVs, or even CMSs like WordPress and Drupal, Contentful, and really pretty much anything. This list doesn't include GraphCMS, but while Jesse was talking, I checked out the fact that we have a GraphCMS plugin as well, which works, which is really cool. So we'll take a look at how that works in a few seconds. All right, so now that we have this done, let's get into GraphQL Madrid and take a look at what your typical Gatsby site looks like. Now, in this case, you notice that I'm in the wrong directory, so I need to get into GraphQL Madrid and then open that. So let's close this, make this a little bigger. All right, so like we were talking about previously, we have some content in Markdown files. All right. And this is just plain old Markdown. And I want to be able to consume this data. Now, typically, what I would do is I would add a Webpack loader that can read these files off of disk and let me consume that data in a specific way. But that can get tough, and that's also specific per data type. With Gatsby, what you can do is, so we don't even need to do any of the stuff that if you start a new project, you can use a starter like we just did. That the starter we just used right now includes plugins. In case you're not using a starter, you can go ahead and add 2 plugins in this case. One is Gatsby Source File System, which lets you get stuff from disk, and then Gatsby Transformer Remark, which lets you sort of consume Markdown. But in our case, we already have these. It came with the starter, so we don't need to do any of that. Let's just take a look at the Gatsby site that's now running. So now that we have this running, let's take a look at GraphQL. So in GraphQL, very quickly, let's try to get data from our Markdown file. If I start typing and say all Markdown remark, you'll see that I already have access to a bunch of nodes with IDs. I have some key called front matter, which perhaps is these keys. So let's try to get, say, the title and the date and the description. And I can also go ahead and get the HTML for what this Markdown would convert into. If I run Command Enter and run the query, you'll see that I've now gotten the title, the date, the description, the HTML, right? And for all of them, for 3 different pages. If I go back and edit Hello World and say Hello Madrid and change the title as well and hit save, and if I run this query again, you'll see that this now says Hello Madrid. So the cool thing about how all of this works together is that I didn't have to read my file locally or write any code to be able to consume this. All I had to do was use a GraphQL plugin, a Gatsby plugin that lets me get this data over GraphQL. Now, while we were watching Jesse's talk, we saw him build out this really cool GraphCMS API with records, right? And what I was thinking about was, how easy it would be for me to consume that if I wanted to. So let's go back and get the URL that Jesse has very kindly given us, and let's see if we can consume that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a plugin. In this case, it's going to be called Gatsby Source. I think the plugin is called Gatsby Source GraphCMS, maybe. Oh no, we just need Gatsby Source GraphQL, right? So we don't have or need a specific plugin for GraphCMS, but we can use the Source GraphQL plugin, which typically lets you source data from any service that has a native GraphQL endpoint. So now that we've added this plugin, let's go ahead and add it to Gatsby config. So now Gatsby config, if you've never used Gatsby, is the config file which lets you set up plugins and give it options, right? So in this case, I'm going to say Gatsby Source GraphQL. I think we need some more options, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what those options are. So let's look at documentation. It says that we need a type name, a field name, and a URL. Great. We already have the URL which Jesse gave us. So I'm going to paste that in here. This is GraphCMS. This is the one that he just set up on during his talk. And we're also going to add these other options, which is type name and field name. So now that we've added these, let's go ahead and run Gatsby. Gatsby develop is what you'll use if while you want to sort of run your site in development mode. So now that that's running, let's see if we can now consume the data from GraphCMS. It's sourcing nodes. So sourcing nodes typically means that it's fetching data from all of your sources. This might be taking a little longer than usual because of my internet connection. Okay, now that it's done, let's go back to GraphQL. Okay, and this time I'm going to hit refresh so that I get the new schema. You'll see that I have something called all GraphQL source, which we didn't have previously. So now that's interesting. Let's take a look at what that is. I reckon one of it will be the one we just added. So we do get one. The type name is GCMS and the field name is GCMS. So that means that the config that we just added worked. Let's try to get data from GraphCMS. So as you see, autocomplete tells me that there's some field called GCMS. Now you notice that this is the same field that I added in config. So this can be anything. But yeah, let's go ahead and query this. Let's see that we now have artists, all with names. We should have producers, and one of them is me. And we should have records as well, all of which will have titles, and I reckon artists with names. All right, so let's go ahead and run this query and see if it works. And it does. We get you-know-who produced by me from a record called Madrid Streets by you-know-who. So now this is the beauty of Gatsby and how it uses GraphQL, right? We just went from using a plain markdown file, right? And remember that the markdown data is still in here. I can still go ahead and say all markdown remark and say, give me all the titles of my posts as well. So I can continue to, let's say we're building a record store like Jesse was suggesting. I could continue to have my blog in Markdown and have, the store with GraphCMS. And this is what I think the power of Gatsby is, and this is the superpower that I was previously referring to. You can pull data from literally anywhere. We have hundreds of different source plugins, and like we've just seen, we can consume anything from a Markdown file to a GraphQL endpoint from something like GraphCMS, or even a really old-fashioned CMS like WordPress that doesn't have a GraphQL endpoint, or even a Google Doc or a database like MongoDB. So let's talk about how this works and where it came from, right? If you take a step back, we'll see that there was a time when Gatsby was pre-GraphQL, when we didn't use GraphQL, and data was initially sort of pushed into templates. So you notice that in Gatsby, I've had a source directory which has a folder called templates, and this is just plain old React code. If you write a lot of React code, this will look very familiar. These are all React components, and this is a template for my blog post. And what Gatsby is doing is that it's creating a page for each blog post using this template, right? But initially, before pre-GraphQL, Gatsby still had this notion of templates, but you'd have to push data into templates. Now that looks a lot like how static site generators looked like before Gatsby, where you'd have to, let's say, use Jekyll or Hugo, where you'd push data into templates. Now that can get a little tricky, because when it comes to stuff like Webpack, when it comes to being able to use this markdown file that I have in here and consume its data, if I'm using a Webpack loader to get data from it, that's great and it works. But Webpack is a bundler. It's not a database. It's not something you can query, which means that if I was building a site that didn't use all of these fields, that just used title, or let's say I was rendering a page which just lists my blog posts, which didn't need the entire content, it's very tricky for me to be able to tell Webpack or tell a specific loader to just get that specific data and not get everything. And we've seen why that can be bad on the web. We've seen why, and one of the biggest strengths of GraphQL is that it lets you, fetch just what you need and not over or under fetch. So, those are some of the problems we saw, and this was a couple of years ago. And you also tend to miss the flexibility of building a database-driven site, right? With a database-driven site, you can write complex queries that can do interesting things with your data. I could generate blog posts about each record that comes from, say, GraphCMS in here, and or maybe I could take producers and have them as authors on my blog, and maybe render them on like a little widget somewhere. Stuff like that is pretty easy when you have a database and when you can write rich queries, but that kind of stuff gets really hard without a database. That's some of the stuff that Gatsby and GraphQL together allow you to now do. You can query for any data that is available. As you've seen, I just pulled in data from GraphCMS and from Markdown. And the keyword here is pull. You don't have to push data into a template. Instead, you can pull data that a page needs, right? And that's one of sort of the biggest changes that this has sort of made possible. And this happened a while ago. I think Kyle had oh yeah, there you go, 3rd of September 2016. So it's been a couple of years since Gatsby has had GraphQL and have had a data layer that supports GraphQL. And let's talk a little more about what that data layer does. I've spoken about, I've called it a data layer, and we've seen that Gatsby can support many different plugins and many different data sources. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on under the hood. And some of that stuff includes the things I have here on this list. You might have noticed with Jesse's talk that on GraphCMS, he built out an entire model which had, a schema and a sort of a typed data model of the data that he eventually entered. And that's great. It's always nice to have a schema, and because that makes your apps less brittle, and you can sort of use that ahead of time to know what kind of data you're going to fetch. And that's one of the coolest, that's another really cool thing about GraphQL, right? But having a schema is a privilege. You don't always get data sources that come with typed schemas. For example, we had this markdown file right here. Now I could add another key in here and call it, let's say, okay, give me a field name, somebody. I can't think of anything. Perhaps a subtitle that says, "Hello Madrid, it's nice to..." That's really cliched. Let me come up with a better one. What is "Hello Madrid" in Spanish? Is it hola, or is it hola? Carlos, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, it's with H. Before you did good.
Before was correct.
Yeah,
is this correct?
You did great. Yeah, your Spanish is good.
All right. Cool. I don't speak Spanish, but I can try. So now we have another key in here, right? We call it subtitle, and I can hit refresh and go back and fetch subtitle, and you'll see that it comes out perfectly. I get Hola Madrid, but the thing with this is that I never added subtitle to any schema. This was never added to. These types weren't defined anywhere. And that's what happens with data sources that are not as sophisticated as CMSs like GraphCMS that lets you build a data model, right? But you still need to consume them. So what do you do then? What you do then is that you depend on automatic type inference. And that's one of the first things that Gatsby's done with GraphQL, which I think is pretty revolutionary. Not a lot of people use GraphQL this way, or rather, not a lot of people have used GraphQL this way. Since we saw the use of GraphQL outside of Facebook and a couple of places. So yeah, that's what. So automatic type inference. And in case that doesn't, in case you're not familiar with what I mean here, what I mean is that what Gatsby is doing under the hood is that it's fetching your data and it's inferring the types that the schema would need. So every time Gatsby goes through all of these markdown files, the plugin that we use to generate that part of the schema, which in this case is Gatsby Transformer Remark. Remark is a markdown compiler, and this is a plugin that can understand what markdown is and then give you HTML from it. All right. So Remark in this case is reading through this markdown file and saying that, hey, I see a couple of fields in front matter, and one of them is description. So that means that there might be a key called description in my data, right? So under the hood, Gatsby is letting its plugins infer a lot of this schema, and it's doing it automatically. And this is super powerful because, like I said before, with source plugins or with data sources that don't come with models, this is super useful. Now, what else do? We also do a bunch of other cool things, like generating collections. Now, in the same example of Markdown, you saw that we have 3 different blog posts, and they are in a directory called blog, right? And in my config, I told Gatsby source file system, which reads files from disk, that I want a collection called blog. And you'll see that it's gone ahead and already created this already gone ahead and created this collection here. I think that's supposed to be one called all blog posts, but I might be getting that wrong. Yes, I probably am getting that wrong. I think it'll likely be all site page, but under a collection called blog. But anyway, the markdown, the sort of transformed markdown is what we're interested in. And you see that there is a collection for these pages. And this collection is useful because I can now use this collection to be able to sort of render a list of these different blog posts, right? This didn't sort of exist right off the bat. The plugin sort of didn't have a way to tell Gatsby that it would like there to be a GraphQL collection. That's just something Gatsby's done out of the box, where it's seen that there are multiple different nodes that are of the type markdown, and maybe maybe we can collect them and give you a collection out of it. So that's also happening automatically. Let's talk about filters and sort of MongoDB like querying. You can write queries that do more than just. You can write GraphQL queries that do more than just fetch all of these. For instance, I can say I want to filter. Let's say I want to filter and get blog posts by me. So I'm going to say go to front matter and go to, I think, what is it, author? Oh wait, we don't have an author, do we? Okay, so we don't have an author. Let's add one. Let's add author for this post is me, and then I'm going to go to the other post and make the author of this post. Wow, I cannot spell. I'm going to make the author of this post Carlos, and then I'm going to make the author of this post Jesse. All right, and now you'll see that if I remove all of this filter stuff, right, then I will straight up get, oh wow, that breaks because expected name found closing bracket. Oh, that's because of, right. Yeah, okay. It should work. There you go. Now if I look for an author, I'd have to hit refresh because the schema has changed. So now that if I look for the author, there you go. You see that I get a couple of author names. If I want to just get posts by me, I can go back and say, hey, filter by the author field and make sure that you only give me ones that are equal to my name. Right? I think this needs to be, there you go. Yeah. And if I hit enter now, you'll see that I only get blog posts that are written by me. Right? So this kind of querying is typically has to be written by hand, and that's a lot of work, right? Gatsby gives this to you out of the box. Gatsby is generating, as you can see, a lot of these types in Explorer and well in Docs as well. If you were to look through all of the types it generates, you'll see that Gatsby generates types and collections, and it also generates these smart filters. It also lets you do, more than filtering. Like say, if you want to sort by, let's say we want to sort by in say ascending order, and we want to do that for the front matter title. All right, I'm going to remove the author filter so that I can get more than one blog post. There you go. And now we'll see if this comes sorted. It does. Hello Madrid comes before my second post, and then New Beginnings comes, right? So we've now also sorted this collection by this field. A lot of this stuff that we've just seen, a lot of this rich querying functionality has sort of been generated on the fly for you, and Gatsby's done that under the hood. It also does interesting things like relationships and mappings. You can tell Gatsby that instead of, say, author coming as just a string in this file, I can go back and create a different file, like, say, authors.json, and put authors in there. Like I previously said, I can also go back and make a relationship mapping between data coming in from, say, GraphCMS, like producers, and make them authors for the blog post, for the blog on my record label store, right? So yeah, let's talk about what the limitations are of this aspect. We've seen the things that it allows you to do, and we've seen the good parts, but there are some limitations, and some things can get tricky. And if you've used Gatsby in the past, if you've used Gatsby in production, you've probably seen these. You probably saw them earlier, and you probably also have hit them in your sites, because these are fairly common problems, right? And let's talk about the first one. The first one is that what if there isn't any data? In a lot of cases, this inference that we just spoke about relies on the existence of example data, right? For Gatsby to be able to figure out that a markdown type will have a key called front matter, which in turn has author, it needs to have an example sort of data point to be able to get that. And the reason that's brittle is that if you don't have any data, you don't have any types, right? And that can be problematic. Let's say I was building a site with a blog, right? And let's say I deleted all of my blog posts. Let's say I deleted all of these markdown files. In fact, let's go and try that right now. If we go back and delete all of these, so I'm gonna delete the third one. Okay, I think now we're empty, right? There you go. Now we're empty. We deleted the files and not the folders. So now I've deleted everything. Okay, there's one folder left. I guess I could delete that as well. Okay, it's gone. So now blog is an empty folder. If I go back and run the same query again, and I'm going to remove the GraphCMS query for a second, you'll see that this fails because it says expected type markdown remark fields enum found something else, right? And this is a GraphQL error. And the reason this is a GraphQL error is because GraphQL validation is failing because this schema, I mean, these types don't exist right now. And this is the brittleness that I was referring to when I said that if you don't have any data, you won't have types, and that can be brittle. And sometimes a shape is just known in advance, right? Now, for instance, with GraphCMS, when Jesse made the entire sort of model and put in this data, you already know ahead of time that there's going to be a key called artists, and there's going to be, a field called name in it, and that name is going to be a type of, there you go, GCMS artist. You already know a lot of this data, right? So it seems a little wasteful to not be able to use that in a smart way and to have Gatsby still infer things. And also you have cases where your schema can change as a result of your data. As you saw, we added a key called author, and that resulted in the schema changing, right? And that can also be brittle because you could have sites that depend on a certain schema that would break because of the change in it, right? That could happen like without anyone even noticing. And this is why we came to a conclusion that, okay, so when I made these slides, this was supposed to be a nice joke. I don't even remember what the joke was there. So I'm just going to pause at this slide for a second, let you appreciate the beautiful, the image. And I'll move on to what was the solution eventually to these brittle problems that we saw. We added a mechanism in Gatsby called schema customization. And this happened somewhere, I think, mid last year. And what this does is that it finally lets Gatsby plugins and consumers define schemas ahead of time instead of relying on inference. So in this case, as you can see in this example code, we have a function called create types, which you can pass, SDL to and say that, hey, I want to create a type called author.json, make it a node, and make it implement a node. A node in this case is just an internal Gatsby type. And I can say that there are two fields called name and birthday, and I can create those types. And the cool thing about this is that even if there's no data, I still won't get GraphQL validation errors. My queries will still run. They might, just return null or an empty array, but at least they won't break validation, right? And in some cases, you want to do a mix of both. You want to be able to not infer some things, but you want to be able to infer other parts. Let's say you have and this is true today for Gatsby and a lot of its plugins. Let's say you have older plugins that rely on inference, and you have newer versions of the plugins that, build their own types. To be able to transition between the two iteratively, you want to be able to have an API that lets you get the best of both worlds, right? So we have these directives, including don't infer, and we can tell on a per type basis to Gatsby that, hey, go ahead and infer these fields, or don't infer any fields on this type, right? And a lot of these APIs were available in Gatsby 2.2. So if you've updated Gatsby recently in the past 6 or 8 months, you've probably used something above Gatsby 2.2. We're currently, I think, on 2.20. And huge hat tip to Mikhail on our team and Stefan as well for all of their work on this. These are the APIs. If you want to, play with this more, please feel free to, get Gatsby, install it, create a site, check out its docs. And with that, we're doing a bunch of things moving forward as well with GraphQL. And the idea is to have many more built-in resolvers. One of them that we've been planning on implementing for a while is what we call the defer directive. And with the defer directive, the idea is that you can have parts of your data from GraphQL that aren't necessarily needed when the page is first hit. You might be able to say have pagination that on scroll keeps loading more data. In a lot of those cases, you want to be able to tell Gatsby that, hey, when you run the runtime, get some of this data later. So a lot of these things, in a lot of these cases, GraphQL directives come in handy, on a per field or a per type basis. And add defer is one that we've been working on and one that we intend to ship soon. You should be able to use this for pagination. We're also building in more directives to share resolvers between types. Right now I think we've shipped a couple after that. We have one called file by path, for example, where if you want to be able to just get a file from a path, you don't have to write the resolver yourself. You can just add a file by path directive, and Gatsby will use some of its default resolvers to do this for you. So you remember when I initially said that Gatsby is React with superpowers? GraphQL is the superpower. GraphQL allows us to be able to fetch data and source it from many different sources, as we've seen as part of this. It really is, honestly, a big part of what Gatsby lets you do. And we love GraphQL. That's it. Do we have questions? Let me take a look at chat.
Yeah, that was a crazy live coding talk. You always are up to this stuff, right? So that's awesome. I love people when they are doing a live coding. So yeah, we have a really good question. So Francisco, he was asking about what are the main difference between Next and Gatsby. That you might answer that question a lot. So you might give a brief answer to that. I know there is a long answer that you might be talking about that stuff a lot, but just in a quick brief answer, you can just summarize it. Yeah.
Right. Sure. That's a great question. That's something that we hear all the time. Okay, so we love Next. I think Next is fantastic. A lot of stuff that Next is good at, which Gatsby might not be, or the stuff that Gatsby is good at that Next might not be. I think we sort of have different strengths in that sense. Next is built around running servers, or even running them serverlessly, but still running sort of dynamic server-side rendered apps in React. Gatsby, on the other hand, has a philosophy that's more tied into ahead of time compile time generation, right? So that's what I think the biggest difference is when it comes to obviously stuff like how GraphQL is used. I think Next, as far as I understand, is a little more data source, sort of data, adapter agnostic. You could really use any NPM library and pull in data and do anything with it. While Gatsby also allows that, Gatsby also gives you stuff out of the box, which is the stuff that we just saw, which is the entire data layer. I haven't seen Next recently, but as far as I recall, Next doesn't sort of come with all of that out of the box. So in many ways, I think Gatsby is build a React app, but you get a lot of batteries included. That works well for a lot of use cases. For some use cases, it might not. And in those use cases, feel free to check out Next. They're great, but I think they have different strengths. I wouldn't call us competitors as much as people think. We also learn a bunch from each other. We the next team shipped some Webpack granular chunking sometime last year, which was super cool, which we, took a look at that PR and sort of, got inspired, and we shipped the same thing. So there's also a lot of stuff that we share in that sense. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that it was a really good answer, and yeah, keep sharing. I think that that's been awesome for the community in general, for the web community, and yeah, it's awesome. Like what GraphCMS is doing for everybody. So that's great. So to wrap it up, like I really wanna thank you to be here, Sid. It's awesome. We couldn't meet in GraphQL Asia 1,000 times, but yeah, we will meet soon. If not, we will e-meet.
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
like,
for having me. And in case you have more questions, I see that I'm looking at
quick. I don't know. I'm not sure if there are more questions, but just like I would like to, if you can tell the people where they can reach you at.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
On Twitter, my handle is chat Siddharth, which is my name. I couldn't get just my name because someone else has been squatting on it for years. Let me see if I can post it in chat. Okay, I can post it in private chat. Can you post this in the live comments, Carlos?
Sure. Yeah, doing that right now.
All right. So that is my Twitter handle. Feel free to tweet at me anytime for any Gatsby related stuff. I would be really glad to help. And yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Siddhartha. And I think we can grab today's GraphQL Madrid Meetup, the very first one. I think it was like it's been an hour and a half with 3 incredible talks, 2 sponsors, and 1 host. So I think like we can just go through every single speaker. So we can start with Vladimir. If you want to say anything.
Yeah. So I want to say like amazing talks. Really enjoyed them. Speaking of Gatsby, I will be streaming using Gatsby with Hasura and Yugabyte. And probably what I need also to do is to use GraphCMS, stitch the schema into Hasura with Yugabyte and Gatsby on the front end. So kind of to wrap up. Yeah.
So, you can propose anything to Bloody, I guess.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the meetup, and yeah, let's meet all together like sometime on Zoom and just stream this on Twitch, discuss stuff, and yeah, thanks for having me here.
Thanks so much, Vladimir. It was a pleasure to have you. Jesse, what are you up to with all this integration stuff?
Yeah, no. First of all, thanks for having me. It was a really big privilege, and hopefully one day we will actually be doing this in Madrid with tapas. Yeah. Now I'm like super hungry.
With Siddhartha as a producer, that'd be awesome.
With Siddhartha as a producer, yeah. Sorry about not putting it together. That was actually you, like your name that we were trying to spell. So sorry about that. Yeah, so I would say just encourage people, definitely check out the tool. We do have a Gatsby e-commerce starter that was created. It's technically for the previous version, but most of it carries straight over. We'll be updating that here very quickly. But if you want to build like a company swag store or something, we have a really cool starter that was put together by a couple of our advocates in-house using Gatsby. So you can do pretty powerful stuff with Gatsby, GraphCMS, and some serverless functions and stuff in the mix. So yeah.
That's awesome. I thank so much, Jesse, for joining us and giving such incredible demo, live coding demo. I feel like today, the 3 of you guys, you have done live coding. That's awesome. That's not used a lot also. That's great. And Siddhartha, if you might want to just like wrap it up, and then we can just go through Tobias and Eva to finish it off.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, all of you for organizing this and for having us. I think this was a lot of fun, and I know that it's a hard time right now globally with respect to COVID. I hope everybody's safe. I hope everybody's taking care of themselves. And go use GraphCMS and go use whatever Vladimir is building, and use Gatsby, and take care of yourself. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Siddhartha. Stay safe, stay strong. We will do great. And yeah, Tobias, please, you can just say something if you want.
Yeah, nothing much to add, but has been fantastic. Couple of nice talks. I really enjoyed it. So looking forward to the next one. And thank you everybody for making this happen. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Tobias, for joining us, and also for Brickle to sponsor this meetup. And Eva, the main host of the meetup, thanks for bringing us here, because it was like difficult to find someone to help us in order to set this up. So really thanks to the digital media labs. And please wrap it up, and then we can just finish the live stream.
That sounds great. No, we were so happy to help. There were some great talks today. So glad that we can do this. I think it helps keep everybody sane to have something interesting to listen to and watch, and not concentrate too much on the current situation. So thank you all for setting it up.
Thanks so much. So yeah, to everybody, it's a thanks a lot for joining. We will post all the talks on Twitter and Meetup, so you're gonna be able to see it again. And we will do more meetups. Of course, we will try to do a on-site meetup, but I'm not sure when that's gonna happen. Difficult to predict. And as we cannot ensure that, I'm pretty sure that we are gonna run more remote events. So if you are willing to speak, just reach us out at GraphQLMadrid@gmail.com on Twitter, on Meetup, GraphQL Madrid, and we will be so happy to have you here. And yeah, just to finish off, I really want to thanks to everybody that is fighting so hard with this pandemic, because it's been tough times, and I really want to encourage to everybody to be safe, stay strong, and of course stay at home. So thanks so much, everybody, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.